All right, so we need to check all of the papers for whether or not they contain student data. As you were doing the coding, you noticed that we had some papers that had a yes for student data, so that were identified as they contain student data. But once you started looking at the papers, you realized, no, they don't. And so the students who did those selections for me obviously made at least some false positives. They said there is a student data, but in reality there is not. There is a good chance there are also false negatives. That is, the students told us that there is no student data in the paper, whereas in reality there might be. And so we want to check the remaining papers for those missing data. The challenge here is that we have 3,000 papers total, over 3,000, and even if it takes only a minute or so per paper, and probably it may take a little more, it will take a lot of time. I may literally just run out of money if we test so many papers. So as the first step, I would like to ask you to check about 100 papers, and we'll see how much time it takes. If it takes too much time, maybe we will not do that. Maybe we'll trust that initial selection. Or if we find a lot of errors and know we must do it. But if overall it will be fine, maybe we'll go with that. And so here is what we're going to do. Let me share my screen with you so you can see what we're doing here. So this is what we'll do. So you have this file called consolidated data. I'm sending it to you by email. In this file, there are two pages, coders and all. So here we have the consolidated results that I already got from you, the students. Here is all of the papers that we have in the folder called journals. So when you go to that same Dropbox folder and you go to papers, the entire list of all of those journals and all of those papers is here. Jim, Mir, all of them, and you have the paper ID here. So as an example, let me take, for example, Brandon. So I'm looking at the Journal of International Management, JIM, and according to the initial check, only 7 papers were selected to contain student data. I would like to test the rest of the papers, and so we have a total of 94 papers left. So I'm assigning Brandon to check these papers. So his name is in checked by. And so Brandon would need to go to these papers, check if they contain the data, and in this column nearby, include the correct information, yes or no. And so Brandon would be checking JIM. So this is what he does. He goes to JIM, right? And literally, let me just position both of them on the file here. Literally goes paper by paper. And since we have only 5, he literally can go from the first one all the way because they're alphabetically sorted and check them. And here is how I would check it. So it would probably take me 30 seconds per paper to check it. I would open the paper. I would hit Control F for find. I would type student. In fact, I would even copy that for the next paper and see where we have the word student. And so here we have, and just see if there is a description about sample. Nobody can use a student sample without mentioning the word student, right? So if they said students, it would come up somewhere. So we go to the word student, and here it's definitely not the method, so we skip this. Here is a footnote, again, not a sample. Global mindset student, international business, still not the sample. It doesn't seem like this paper contains student or student sample. You might want to go and see if you have, if you can find method and see what kind of sample they used, but that takes probably too much time. We don't want to do that. So the objectives, data collection, 40 item questionnaire used, blah, blah, blah. Georgia, North Carolina were the sites where they did the collection. Yeah, we don't see anything here about the students. 22 were returned, so they used mail, so that was not a student. So we got that, we just put no, we know it's a no. And let's do it for a few more, and I'll just show you how I would do it. So again, open the paper, Control F, Control V for paste, student. Safety needs, student workers, no, that's not about sample. Groups of students in North America have been band together to fight for over, no, that's not about the sample. Students are fighting, no. So this one is a no too, right? Took me what, like 30 seconds. Let's do to the next one, barriers. Here is the barriers. Click, let's check student, Control V student. Organizational effects, table 3. The student t-test, no, that's a different thing. That's not student t-test. No, here they're just talking about a method. So nothing about the sample. So it's another no. So as you can see, it takes me about 30 seconds to do it that way, but let's see. Book review, probably a no, because I mean, a book review is not a study. So we can just put here right away. Cluster life cycle, diaspora. So let's see if we have anything here. Again, going to the paper, Control V student. Almost half of all linear colleges and all students were located. Oh, that's interesting. So let's see if they say student anywhere else. Oh, that's the only time. So evidently they didn't use students here at all, just because they mentioned something about students located. Maybe, but it doesn't look like this paper contained any data. There are no tables with data files. No, that's another no. And so on and so forth. Competition, let's check this competition thing. So control student, educational research programs, no, they're not talking about the sample here. Proposition, no. The only time they mentioned it was something else. So it seems like for this journal it's pretty accurate, whoever did it. So let's check a couple more. Control, student t-test, that's something else. Student t-test, that's something else. That's the name of there was a guy named Student and he came up with that test. So Jim, cross national. So let's test a couple more. So student one more time. Had an effect on students' desire, but yeah, no, it doesn't look like it was a sample of students. So as I said, it's extremely unlikely that anyone would do a study where they used a sample of students without saying the word student in methods or when describing the sample. And if so, it's extremely unlikely, yeah. So yeah, and as you can see, they're talking about firms here. So if you search for the word student and it doesn't come up in the context of so many students from University X were used in this study, chances are we don't have to worry about it. They didn't use students. So that's another no. And so by doing so, it seems like we can go pretty quickly. I mean, I've covered how many now? Like 15 papers right here, 20 papers right here, spanning, I don't know, 10 minutes, probably not even that. So it seems like we can go pretty quickly. So let's see how much you can complete here. And so Brandon, by the way, so I'll remove your name here because we don't need to do it. So it's already done. So I guess I'll put my name. I double checked. So if an error is found later, we'll know whom to blame. But yeah, that's what we need to do. And so you just record your data here, save the file, attach, and email it back to me.